Hello, and welcome to the webinar tonight. We appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to answering any questions that you may have. The webinar tonight is about the vaccines. Una, early on, decided that we were going to do everything possible to keep those we serve and those who serve them safe. And so at the leadership of our CEO, Mike Dyer, he called the staff together and they came up with a campaign slogan, "Get the shot, save a life." And so the outreach team then got to work trying to put together an educational program that would serve those that we serve and those who serve them. And so in doing this, we realized that there were many misunderstandings about different parts of the vaccines and what would happen, and that we had to get some authoritative sources to dispel those myths. So we reached out to our authority in our office, Dr. Jose Balea, and we welcome him with us this evening, so that we could make sure that we had all of the facts correct. So I'm Anita Disbrow, and Dr. Jose Balea is going to join me. And if you have questions that do not appear on the screen that we have not received yet, and you would like to ask them, please do so by sending them to my email, Anita, A-N-I-T-A, @una.com, or .org, excuse me. And now we will hear from Dr. Balea. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Disbrow, for that kind introduction. Get the shots and save a life. That's the slogan that United Needs and Abilities is launching in terms of addressing the challenges of the COVID pandemic in our region. What I'd like to do is just briefly couch this introduction with what is virtually happening in our backyards in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, Dr. Jackson-Ayotunde will kind of address a more national situation in terms of cases and numbers in her presentation. But what I'd like to do is to shift it and just speak about this region, which is the Eastern Shore of Maryland. The 9 counties, as most of you who are joining us know, is a fairly rural area, particularly the lower 3 counties. But that doesn't mean that we're immune to the challenges of the pandemic. Wicomico County has seen just under 7,000 confirmed cases. This is just Wicomico County. Just under 7,000 cases of confirmed COVID, with 141 mortality or cases of patients losing their life to the infection. Statewide, we're talking about 382,000 confirmed cases, and approximately 8,000 deaths in the state of Maryland. A total of 1,362,000 vaccinations have occurred. That's about 70% of the total vaccines that are available in the state of Maryland. So we're doing a pretty good job in terms of vaccinating people. In the county, in Wicomico County, our percent positive cases is still around 4%. And that's a little bit above the state positivity rate, which is about 3.8%. Now, Dr. Jackson is going to talk at length and in details about the vaccines, but I do want to mention that United Needs and Abilities is incredibly lucky to have a partnership with CVS pharmacies, who have been distributing the Pfizer product to our staff and our consumers here at the agency. Most of you know there are 3 vaccines that have been approved for distribution in the United States. That includes Pfizer and Moderna, and the more recently approved JJ product. We've been lucky to have distribution of both Pfizer and Moderna vaccines here on the shore. There is a third vaccine that has been developed, the Oxford AstraZeneca, which has not received approval for distribution in the United States. It has been used overseas in Europe and in the UK. And the reason I mention those real quickly is, there's literally hundreds of vaccines. Dr. Jackson is going to talk a little bit about this that are on the pipeline. There will probably be others and/or modifications to the existing protocols as we move forward and in the pandemic during the course of this year. Dr. Patrice Jackson-Ayotunde, who is our guest speaker, received her doctoral degree from Howard University in Washington, and then shortly thereafter her doctoral fellowship at Georgetown. That was in 2009, 2010, and she crossed over on the bridge and has been associate professor of pharmaceutical sciences at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. She sits on the Richard Bernstein Endowed Professor Chair at the university. Her area of expertise is in novel anticonvalescent medications, seizures, and epilepsy. She's been quite involved at the National Institutes of Health with the Institute of Neurological Disorders and Strokes. She's published numerous articles. What most of folks probably don't know is that Dr. Jackson-Ayotunde has been working with United Needs and Abilities for over 8 years now. She really stepped up and came to the agency many years ago, and we've been very, very fortunate to work with her and the students in the School of Pharmacy at UMES, reaching out into the community, as well as doing numerous fundraisers and raising awareness about intellectual disabilities and seizure disorders in general. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Jackson. And again, thank you very much for being with us this evening. Dr. Jackson.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Balea, for that introduction. I do appreciate it. I want to thank you, Mr. Dyer, Mrs. Anita, for the invitation for me to join you all this evening to talk about the COVID-19 vaccines and to help shed some light on the United Needs and Abilities community questions and concerns about the COVID-19 vaccines. Next slide, please. So my slogan for this webinar is similar to UNA's slogan, which is get a shot, save a life. The slogan that I'm using this afternoon is get vaccinated. It helps to protect you, your loved ones, and your community. The vaccine truly is one of the tools that we have and to help to fight against the pandemic. I heard in one webinar that one person mentioned that it's our only hope at this time to help to fight against the pandemic. To get back to some state of normalcy. And so to get vaccinated is actually to show that you care about this country, you care about the world, and you care about yourself and your loved ones and your community in that regard. Next slide, please. So I want to speak on a little bit about COVID-19 then and now. So a few facts, dates, or what have you. So the novel coronavirus disease, that is the acronym for COVID, the COVID, stands for the novel coronavirus disease. And there are several coronaviruses that have been studied over the years, but this disease that caused the pandemic this coronavirus is a novel strand. And so the first outbreak was recorded in Wuhan, China in 2019, towards the end of the year. January 20th, 2020, marked the first case of the COVID-19 in the US. So about 14 months ago, only 14 months ago, March 11th, the year is coming upon us very soon. March 11th, 2020 is when the World Health Organization, WHO, declared that the COVID-19 was a global pandemic. And so since the COVID-19 is a new virus, novel virus, scientists are still learning about the virus. As we speak this evening, there are scientists, researchers that have been working hard, are working hard to learn as much as they can about the virus and some of its variants. Not necessarily today, but I think it was yesterday that we had, and the number is growing. We had over 28 million cases in the United States of coronavirus, COVID-19. Most of the individuals that have contracted COVID-19 or been diagnosed with having COVID-19 have mild to moderate symptoms. And so several individuals have recovered well. Those that are currently vaccinated or have not been vaccinated yet. So according to the CDC, we have over 78 million individuals that are vaccinated either with the first or second shot. As I mentioned, that several individuals, millions of individuals have recovered from COVID-19, but unfortunately, the disadvantages, many disadvantages to this virus. But one is that over 500,000 of individuals have lost their lives. And it hurts my heart to put the plus sign there, but that number continues to grow. Over 500,000 deaths in the US due to this virus. Next slide, please. So we have heard in the news about the different variants, and variants of the COVID-19 is basically mutations of the novel COVID-19 strand. So you can look at those as being a new COVID-19 like virus. And scientists are still learning about the COVID-19 virus as well as its variants. We have heard about variants in South Africa. We've heard about variants, different strands in Latin America, and some of those strands have actually made it to their cases in the United States. As of this past Saturday, February 27th, we currently have 3 COVID-19 vaccines that the FDA has approved for emergency use authorization. So we have the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and recently the Johnson-Ayotunde vaccine. When it comes to the percent effectiveness for the vaccines, Pfizer has the highest number in terms of effectiveness for the vaccine to protect against the COVID-19 virus. Moderna, 94.1%. Johnson-Ayotunde, there's 2 numbers. It's 66.9%. That's related to that vaccine having the protection against moderate to severe symptoms of the COVID-19, and then 85%. And so the 85% number is what the scientists and researchers are pushing, saying that the important number is 85% effectiveness of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine against severe disease and death among the people that was in the large clinical trials. And with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, because they had a large trial, they were able, or they set up research case studies, both in South Africa and Latin America. So they have data for their vaccine being effective against the variants in South Africa and Latin America. In terms of safety for the vaccines, the Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, there has been several studies done to show that the vaccines are safe. Although the vaccine development was speedy, studies have shown that no safety steps were actually skipped. There was a condensing of these safety steps, but no step was skipped. Okay, the FDA critically looked at the effectiveness as well as the safety of these vaccines, and that we can say that due to the studies that the COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. In terms of the number of shots, the Pfizer shot, you have 2 shots. You get your first dose. The second dose is 21 days later. For the Moderna, the second dose is 28 days after the first dose for the first shot. And for the Johnson & Johnson, there's the single shot. I put storage here because that plays a role with the stability of the vaccine. So storage is actually important. With the Pfizer vaccine, we know the Pfizer vaccine had to be stored in ultra cold temperatures, very specialized, but the FDA recently approved that the Pfizer vaccine can be stored at a negative 20 degree Fahrenheit for 2 weeks. The Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines can be stored at in regular freezers. Next slide. So because the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is just now rolling out, and on the Eastern Shore, we're more what has been delivered to the Eastern Shore is the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. I will mainly concentrate on the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines in terms of how they work. Next slide. Next slide, please. So with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, they work the same. They use the same technology, which is the messenger RNA technology. This technology is new. This is a new vaccine, new technology, but it works. It's effective and it is safe. Introducing messenger RNA, which is a component that we have in our cells that help to synthesize proteins. So with the vaccine, once the messenger RNA vaccine of Moderna and Pfizer is introduced into the body, the messenger RNA genetic material creates this code. So it's more like a blueprint for the spike protein that's found in the coronavirus. So we have all seen the picture of coronavirus, and there's these surface proteins on the virus itself, on that sphere shape. Those are the spike proteins. Those spike proteins are the proteins that bind to the receptor, different receptors in our body that causes the complications with COVID-19. So once the messenger RNA from the vaccine is in place, and that blueprint is created for the spike protein, the immune system is turned on. The immune system is activated. And once the immune system is activated, there's a generation of antibodies to recognize that spike protein, because the spike protein is a foreign object in our body. And so when foreign things are introduced into our body, the immune system, it says, okay, I need to wake up, and the immune system is activated, and therefore the antibodies are formed. Once the antibodies are formed to recognize the spike protein, in the case that you are vaccinated and exposed to the coronavirus, the immune system is turned on, and the antibodies that were created to recognize the spike protein will then attack the virus and destroy it. So that is the pathway of how the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines actually work. And I have a cartoon to explain what the text is saying here. Next slide, please. So you have Mr. PJ. Mr. PJ asks the question of how does this vaccine work? And so to explain it in a cartoon form, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines again use the messenger RNA type of technology. And so you have the messenger RNA again that codes for, it has this blueprint for the coronavirus spike protein. Again, those spike proteins are the reddish color surface proteins that you see on the picture of the coronavirus. So once that spike protein is coded or generated in the body, there is immune system is activated. Once the immune system is activated, then you have the generation of the antibodies. In case that you are exposed to the coronavirus, this is the level of protection. The antibodies, once exposed to coronavirus after vaccination, the antibodies that were generated to recognize the spike protein will then attack the spike protein. And so those antibodies that your body has generated will attack the spike proteins that are on the surface of the coronavirus. And that way, as you see, that is a way that your immune system, the antibodies that were generated, will then destroy, get rid of the coronavirus. So that's the level of protection. So then Mr. PJ is vaccinated because it sounds pretty good to him. So he gets that shot and he saves a life. Next slide, please. In terms of the vaccine ingredients, some people out there are worried about different ingredients in the vaccines. The vaccines ingredients for Pfizer, for the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine are very simple. There's only 4 ingredients, and those 4 ingredients include the messenger RNA, that technology, lipids, which are fats, to help stabilize the vaccine. You have salt, because the vaccine is a water-based type of solution, so to help for the formulation to be soluble in water. And then you have sugar, sucrose. Those are the only 4 ingredients in the vaccine for Pfizer and Moderna. Next slide, please. Now we will get to the community questions that were submitted. So the first area that we will look at is vaccine safety. So the first question asks, do you feel the rush to market for the vaccine makes the drugs less safe and could be a concern in the future? On May 15, 2020, The White House under Trump's administration announced Operation Warp Speed. That was to accelerate the drug discovery and development, production, distribution of safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines. And the date was by January 2021. So Moderna and Pfizer was able to produce and distribute their vaccines toward the end of 2020, before January. And so due to the fact that it seemed as though that the vaccines were speedy, that they were rushed, again, there were no safety steps that were skipped. And so therefore, studies have shown that the vaccines are safe and effective. Can I be sure that that in the future nothing will put me at greater risk of health issues if I take this vaccine? That is a very good question. And at this time, some of the knowledge in terms of the long-term effects of the vaccine, what would happen, we don't know, because we're all in this together. You probably have heard that as well. We are all in this together. You have a novel virus, you have novel vaccines, and so there's data that's being generated at this moment. Again, there's researchers, there's scientists that are working to find those questions out, but at this time, we don't know what the future holds. We hope that the vaccine will continue to be effective, to be safe, as it shows right now, but in terms of the future, we do not know at this time. Do people give up their HIPAA rights when they receive vaccination? No, they do not. My husband is now fully vaccinated. He's an employee of Bay Shore, and I asked him that question, and no, you do not give up your HIPAA rights. Actually, he said that HIPAA wasn't even discussed when he received his shots. Next slide, please. So to continue with vaccine safety, another question, can I still be a carrier of the vaccine if I am vaccinated? So the short answer to that is yes. You can still be a carrier of the vaccine. Again, research is ongoing there's studies right now. I was reading last night about studies that are ongoing about individuals to be carriers of the vaccine that are asymptomatic. So the short answer is yes, you can still get affected after you have been vaccinated. But the good news is that the chances of getting seriously ill is very low. Can the vaccine do anything to my DNA? The answer to that is no. The vaccine does not have will not modify any alterations to the DNA. For the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, again, they have messenger RNA technology, and we and our cells have the same, similar messenger RNA. And so the messenger RNA does not enter the nucleus of the cell. That's the center part. That is where the DNA is housed. And so where the DNA is housed, the vaccine materials do not even enter that space. So no, there is no alterations or modifications to the DNA. So can the vaccine cause me to be unable to parent a healthy child? That's another good question. So right now we have limited data about the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines for women who are pregnant. But there are clinical trials that are ongoing right now as we speak that's looking at the effectiveness and the safety, more so the safety of the vaccines in pregnant women. So more to come on that story. For right now, there has nothing been reported that it is unsafe to be vaccinated while pregnant. But again, there are clinical trials that are ongoing to generate data to answer that question more firmly. So what is your number one concern with the vaccine? So my number one concern, or I have a couple of concerns with the vaccine, they're related to what's going to happen in the future. So the long-term effect of the vaccine. Uh, will the vaccine be like a booster shot, like the tetanus shot that we get every 10 years? Will we have to go back? Will it be annually? Will we have to get a shot every 5 to 10 years? That data has not been generated yet. Again, everything that has been going on at this stage has been novel, and we're learning as the scientists turn out the data and share it with the public. We are learning daily, weekly, monthly in terms of what's going on with the vaccine as well as the COVID-19 virus. But those are my concerns or my questions. Next slide, please. So in terms of public safety, if I am able to get the vaccine, how long before I am safe to be in the public? Immediately after you receive the vaccine, that you are safe to be in the public. Once you are vaccinated, it is important to note to maintain the mandates of wearing a mask, staying 6 feet apart, do not gather in large gatherings, to wash your hands. So the things that the CDC has actually mandated over the course of the year with this pandemic, we still want to do those, have those practices and continue to do those things to help fight against the pandemic. Do those who are vaccinated still need to wear their mask in public, or are they exempt from the public mandate? The answer is no, we're not. If you're vaccinated, you're not exempt from the public mandate. Yes, you still need to wear your mask because the pandemic is not over. We're still in this together. So again, wearing that mask is very important. Washing your hands for 20 seconds or more, distance 6 feet apart, not gathering in large settings is very important, even if you're vaccinated. The next question is, can immunity really work with this vaccine, or do you think it will just cause people to be sloppy in the way in which they take precautions? Someone who's vaccinated may think that, okay, I can just remove my mask and go back to a level of normalcy. But again, we want to remember that we are in a pandemic. The pandemic is still going on. As we have heard from the news, from CDC, Dr. Fauci, having that herd immunity reaching the 70% in the United States is very significant. That's why getting vaccinated, getting that shot, save a life. protecting yourself, your loved ones, your community is so very important so that we can get closer to that herd immunity. Continuing to wear your mask, continuing to wash your hands, continuing to stay distant. Those things are still very important to try to fight against this pandemic so that we can get back to a level of normalcy. So these questions here is related to the intellectual and or developmental disability community, the IDD community, which is the community that UNA serves. And so this question is stating that some people have suggested that people with intellectual disability are at higher risk for the COVID-19. Is it because they don't take precaution, or is there medical science that suggests it's because of their disorders? So there is no medical science that I have found or any studies that states that it is because of their disorders, or more so of because of the precautions of the staying distance, maybe wearing a mask. So I have some background information that I want to speak on for and spend some time here, because I know that this is the community that UNA serves, the IDD community. So the intellectual and or developmental disability community, it makes up about 1 to 2% in the US population. Several studies have shown that the IDD community, the individuals may be more susceptible to the COVID-19 virus, the ability to undergo more severe illness, greater risk at hospitalization, and unfortunately, there's almost twice in the case for deaths in the age range of 18 to 74. People with the IDD, they may experience difficulties following the social distance or understanding the need to wear a mask. And so, therefore, that is related to why there's a higher risk for individuals in that particular community. In Maryland, Governor Hogan's vaccination plan included individuals with in the IDD community in the phase 1B. So currently in Maryland, we are in the phase 1C that includes, the phase 1C includes persons from the phase 1A and phase 1B. And phase 1C also includes individuals, postal workers, lab service individuals, and those that are working in agriculture. So if there's any questions concerning timing, concerning the health risk for getting vaccinated for individuals with that's a part of the IDD community, I will say to contact the physician and to work alongside with the physician to discuss the concerns with the safety and the time to take the vaccine. Is the vaccine going to be mandatory to be employed for those with ID? And I will turn that question over to Dr. Balea to answer.
Well, I believe that that's a very good question. Here at United Needs and Abilities, it is not mandatory to have employees and those who work with our population to be vaccinated. It is strongly encouraged and supported There are fiscal incentives to get folks vaccinated, and we're certainly trying to, meet the challenge of destigmatizing or taking away the ambiguity of and concerns over efficacy and safety of the vaccine. But at this time, at least at United Needs and Abilities, the policy is not mandatory, but it is strongly encouraged.
Okay, for the additional questions, will there be additional vaccines developed in the future? When the Trump administration last May announced Operation Warp Speed for the discovery and development of safe and effective vaccines for the COVID-19, several pharmaceutical companies, several labs jumped on, took the challenge of turning their research, turning their dollars, and with a focus of generating vaccines to be effective against the COVID-19. So, as Dr. Balea mentioned in his introduction, that there are several vaccines in the pipeline. Will there be vaccines that will be approved for emergency use for authorization from the FDA? I am not for sure. The three that we have, again, they are effective at preventing and protection against the coronavirus. They are safe according to the studies, and so if there are going to be additional vaccines after the Johnson & Johnson, that is to be seen. Are schools going to start making this like the other vaccination programs for admission? With that, in terms of pediatrics, there's no data concerning the COVID-19 vaccine in the pediatric community. And so we do not know if this will eventually become a vaccination program for admission into schools. That is another question that is good, but we will have to wait for the data to come out and to be able to answer that question more firmly. And so will UNA be holding future webinars to update its staff and clients on new information about the current vaccines? I will say to that, and Mrs. Anita or Dr. Balea wants to chime in, or Mr. Dyer wants to chime in on the holding of future webinars. But I believe that UNA taking this this step here to educate its community, that they will continue to do so as their new developments for vaccines come out.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody. Let me answer the last question first. If there is a need and it will serve a purpose, then we will definitely put on another webinar. And if we do so, I would love to have Dr. Jackson back. I thank you very much. You did a wonderful job of explaining this to everyone. So we really thank you for that. And anyone who has questions that they would like answered, please send an email to anita@una1.org. That's Anita, A-N-I-T-A, @una1.org. And Dr. Jackson will respond to your email. Thank you. Thank you all very much.